The city of Valora stretched out like a jewel under the twin moons, its crystal towers gleaming softly, reflecting the light of floating lanterns that danced above narrow streets. The air smelled faintly of metal and blooming ether flowers, a scent unlike anything Kale had ever known on Earth. He had been sent here as part of a cultural exchange mission, an opportunity to study alien societies firsthand. But he could never have imagined that his first day on the alien planet would change everything. Adjusted his tunic nervously as he followed the palace guides through a hall of shimmering walls. The patterns in the crystal seemed to move when he blinked, as though the building itself were alive. He had been told to be careful, to observe and not to speak unless spoken to. But was never very good at keeping quiet when his mind was full of questions. The festival was unlike any ceremony had read about. Outside the palace, the gardens floated above the city, suspended by invisible forces that made the flowers drift gently in the air. Alien nobles glided across the glassy walkways, their long robes glinting with metallic threads. Music floated in the air, a melody that made Iren's chest ache with both wonder and unease. And then he saw her, Princess Lysara. The stories had not done her justice. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight over water, and her eyes glowed with a color he could not name, something between violet and silver. Her hair cascaded like liquid starlight, moving even as if a breeze touched it, though the air was still. Every noble in the palace bowed as she passed, but she moved with a quiet strength that demanded attention even without the weight of her crown. Iren's heart pounded. He had come here as a scholar, a visitor, not as someone to attract royal notice. Yet something about her presence made him forget caution. The ceremony began. Lysara stood atop a platform of floating crystal, her posture perfect, her expression calm yet unreadable. Iren tried to take notes, scribbling in his small data pad, but the words seemed inadequate. He glanced around and, without thinking, whispered aloud, She doesn't look real, like she belongs to another world entirely." He braced for the worst, but instead she smiled faintly, a movement so subtle it could have been mistaken for a trick of the light. Her smile was not mocking, it was curious, intrigued, alive. "Do you truly see me, human?" she said, her voice like music in the stillness. Iren's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. In his mind, he repeated the words, "See her." He thought he understood what she meant, yet somehow he knew he did not. The palace guards whispered among themselves. One of the chief nobles frowned and approached, a warning in his gaze, but Lysara held up a hand, stopping him. Her gaze never left Iren's. "Come," she said simply, and turned away. Iren hesitated. His logical mind screamed that it was dangerous, that no human could walk beside a royal alien without permission. Yet something in her tone, soft but commanding, pulled him forward. He followed, heart hammering, through a series of twisting hallways that led to a small balcony overlooking the city. The moons cast silver light over the floating gardens, painting everything in shades of magic and shadow. Lysara leaned on the railing, her eyes on the horizon. "You spoke freely in the court," she said without turning to him. "Few dare to do that, and even fewer survive it unscathed. Your words were honest. Rarely do I encounter honesty here. Most speak with caution or with lies polished to perfection. You speak without armor." Why aren't you angry?" he asked finally. Lysara's gaze softened and she turned to look at him fully. Her eyes held a depth that made him want to hide, yet a warmth that made him want to step closer. "Anger is wasted energy," she said. "Curiosity, on the other hand, that is far more powerful, and you have it in abundance. That is why I am intrigued." He thought he did, yet the weight of her words pressed against his chest. I think I do," he said finally. "It means noticing everything that is hidden, everything others ignore." He wanted to speak, to say something clever or profound, but the words failed him. In that silence, he realized the enormity of what he had stumbled into. This was no longer a mission of observation. He had entered a world where honesty could be a weapon and curiosity could be a bridge. "And you," Lysara said softly, "have opened a door. Whether it is wise or dangerous, only time will tell." Her gaze returned to the horizon. That courage can take many forms, that honesty, even from a stranger, can be revolutionary. A sudden shift in the air pulled him from his thoughts. The shadows of the palace seemed to deepen, and somewhere far below, a soft, mechanical hum echoed. Something stirred. Something that did not belong to the festival, to the music, to the floating gardens. Lysara's hand brushed against the railing, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "You are not entirely safe here," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for him. Curiosity is dangerous, and sometimes it is fatal. Then I suppose I must learn to be careful, he said softly, his voice trembling, without losing my honesty. He had blurted out a single thought, and yet it had brought him here to a princess, a city of light and shadow, and a future that promised danger, wonder, and perhaps something more. As the festival music rose and the city lights shimmered below, Irene could not know how deeply his life had already changed. He had spoken honestly, and the reaction had surprised him. But he would soon learn that honesty in Lysara's world was both a key and a gamble, and that the adventure had only just begun. The next morning, Valora looked different to Irene. The city's towers glimmered under a sun that was pale but warm, and the floating gardens appeared less like decoration and more like carefully tended worlds. Every corner of the palace seemed alive, as though the building itself watched those who moved within it. Irene was summoned to the palace by a formal invitation, a rare gesture for a human visitor. The invitation was simple, written in flowing script that seemed to float across the page when he held it. But its meaning was clear. Princess Lysara wished to see him again. He walked through the crystal halls with cautious curiosity, aware that each step could carry consequence. Courtiers whispered as he passed, their alien voices a strange mix of music and resonance. Some stared openly, others hid their eyes. Yet when he finally reached the throne room, he saw that Lysara had been waiting. She stood near a tall window, sunlight streaming across her shimmering hair. Unlike yesterday, she wore the full ceremonial robe of the air, a garment that glowed faintly with runes of protection and power. Her presence filled the room, and Irene felt suddenly small, yet strangely necessary. "You came," she said, her voice calm but layered with meaning. Irene bowed instinctively. I would not miss it," he said. Lysara gestured for him to rise. "You must understand," she began, "that what happened yesterday was unusual. Most visitors, most humans would have been dismissed or even punished for speaking so freely. Yet you survived. That says something." "I only spoke what I saw, what I thought." "I do not want to cause trouble," he said. Lysara's eyes softened. "Truth does not always cause trouble, Irene, but understanding it, that can change everything. There are factions, humans and aliens alike, who wish to see my family fall. The more I study them, the more I realize how few can be trusted. I need someone who sees clearly, someone who is not afraid to speak truth." Lysara tilted her head, considering. "Perhaps because you do not see the palace as a cage. You do not see me only as a princess, only as a title. You see more, and that is rare." Lysara's expression hardened slightly, though her eyes remained kind. "I want you to learn, to understand my world, to see its dangers and its beauty, and perhaps in time to help me protect it. Courage and honesty, those cannot be taught." Every detail revealed how complex and fragile this world was and how high the stakes could be. During a pause, Lysara led him to the palace gardens. The floating plants glimmered in the afternoon light, petals drifting lazily through the air. Irene felt as though he had stepped into a dream again. "You must understand," Lysara said, her voice soft, "that my life is not entirely my own. Every decision, every smile, every word is watched, every action is judged. I have friends, but even friends may not be free of duty. Someone who can see beyond what is expected." A soft, mechanical hum echoed in the distance. Irene tensed, his scholarly curiosity colliding with instinctive fear. Lysara's eyes narrowed, her hand brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "Not everything in this city is safe," she said quietly. "Even in the gardens, even among friends, shadows can move without warning." "Shadows? You may not fully understand what you have stepped into," she said. "But for now, I trust you, and that is more than most can offer me." "Then I will try," he said finally, his voice firm despite the uncertainty. "I will do my best to understand, to help, to—" he hesitated, searching for the right words. "To not let you face danger alone." Irene felt the tension of the day settle into a quiet determination. He had come to Valora to observe, to learn. Now he realized he had become a part of something far larger than himself, a world of intrigue, beauty, and danger with the alien princess at its center. As the evening deepened, Lysara turned to him, her eyes glinting in the soft light. "There is much you do not know," she said. "And even more that you cannot yet imagine, but soon you will see." "They are watching," she whispered, "and their patience wears thin. You must be careful, Irene. Curiosity here can be a gift and a curse." As the floating lanterns lit the gardens, casting their gentle glow on petals drifting in the air, Irene realized that the princess had not only opened a door to her world, she had opened a door to his heart, and he did not know if he would ever be able to close it. For the first time, he understood that honesty, courage, and curiosity were more than traits, they were choices. Choices that could shape destinies. And Irene knew with both fear and determination that he had chosen to step fully into Lysara's world. The twin moons rose higher, casting their pale light across the palace. Somewhere in the distance, a soft hum echoed again, reminding Irene that the danger had not ended. But for now, he was here, beside the alien princess who had surprised him, and perhaps, in some quiet, unspoken way, needed him just as much as he needed her. The following days passed in a strange rhythm for Irene. The city of Valora, with its floating towers and drifting gardens, seemed both beautiful and perilous. Every street, every alley, every glimmer of light reminded him that the princess's words were true. Curiosity could be a gift, and it could also be a curse. Lysara did not leave his side completely, though protocol demanded that she maintain appearances. When the court gathered in the grand hall, she stood aloof and regal, while Irene lingered at the edges, quietly observing, careful not to draw attention. Yet in private, she shared more of her world, the world behind the crown, the world of responsibilities and dangers that few could ever imagine. "You must understand," she said one afternoon as they walked along the suspended garden paths, "that the throne is not only power. It is isolation, fear, and endless decisions that weigh on every soul. Many see only the light, the beauty, the authority, but few notice the shadows. But I also see how much you carry and how strong you are." He discovered her clever mind, her unwavering resolve, and her quiet loneliness. She, in turn, seemed drawn to his honesty, his human perspective, and the way he refused to hide his thoughts behind layers of politeness or fear. Yet danger was never far. One evening, while examining the palace's outer defenses with Lysara, they noticed irregular movements in the shadows below. Figures cloaked in shifting dark energy slipped along the edges of the gardens, avoiding the main paths. "They are testing the palace," Lysara said quietly, her eyes scanning the movement. "The rogue faction is patient. They watch. They wait for mistakes. They want the throne to crumble. But I want to help." Though he was human, he learned quickly, his mind absorbing strategies and tactics as if instinct had guided him all along. More importantly, he learned about trust. Every movement, every glance between him and Lysara became a conversation of its own. Hands brushed while passing objects. Eyes met with unspoken warnings or reassurance. Even silence carried meaning. One night, as they practiced near the highest tower of the palace, Lysara paused and leaned against the railing, her expression distant. "You understand now," she said softly, "why few outsiders are ever allowed near me. The court is unforgiving, the world is unforgiving, and yet you persist. Not just about you, but about what you stand for, and I want to protect you if I can." He did not fully understand the weight of her words, but he felt them pressing against his chest, shaping his thoughts. He realized that the connection between them had grown beyond curiosity, beyond admiration. It had become something profound, something neither could easily name. Suddenly, a subtle shift in the air drew their attention. Shadows moved along the edges of the training platform. Figures cloaked in dark energy lurked near the gardens below. Lysara's hand brushed against his arm, a silent warning. "They have found a way to approach," she whispered, "and soon they will test us. There is no other choice." In that tense moment, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that trust was their greatest weapon, and that together they could face even the most shadowed threats. The figures moved with precise coordination, attempting to flank them, but Irene anticipated the movement, using the strategies Lysara had taught him. He blocked one attack, deflected another, and felt a strange surge of confidence. His training, his observation, and his honesty had led him here to this moment of action. Lysara moved with grace and precision, her weapons flashing like starlight. Irene watched her, amazed by her control, her strength, and her unwavering focus. He felt both admiration and something deeper, a pull that went beyond respect or friendship. After several tense minutes, the shadowed figures retreated, vanishing as suddenly as they had appeared. Lysara lowered her weapon, breathing slightly heavier than usual. "You did well," she said, her voice calm but carrying a hint of pride. "You are learning faster than I expected." His mind replayed the events of the day, the training, the attack, the connection he felt with Lysara. He realized that his feelings were growing stronger, that the line between duty and desire was blurring in ways he had never expected. The next morning, he found Lysara in the floating gardens again. She was seated near a pool of softly glowing water, her reflection shimmering alongside the drifting petals. She looked up as he approached. "You did not rest well," she observed. "I have a lot on my mind," he admitted. "About this world, about you, about what it means to be here. It tests everyone in ways that are subtle and harsh. But those who endure, those who see clearly, can find strength and purpose beyond imagination. And the consequences can be unforgiving." Lysara, in turn, began to trust him more, sharing stories of her childhood, her hopes, and the burdens of her position. The connection between them grew, quietly but unmistakably. Their hands brushed when passing objects. Their eyes met with silent understanding. Their conversations, even when mundane, carried an intensity that neither could deny. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above the palace, casting silver light over the gardens, Lysara turned to Eren with a seriousness that made his stomach tighten. "There is something you must understand," she said. "The rogue faction will not stop. Their patience is long, but their resolve is stronger than most realize. You must be prepared for danger that will test more than your skill. It will test your heart, and the choices you make will matter, perhaps more than you imagine." But now he understood that the greatest challenge was not simply surviving, but trusting the one person who had changed everything in his life. And as he glanced at Lysara, he could not help but wonder. Was he prepared to face the darkness and the unexpected bonds that had formed between them? No matter the cost, the nights in Velora had grown tense. The twin moons cast long shadows across the city, and the palace seemed quieter as though holding its breath. Eren could feel it in the air, the subtle shift of anticipation, the faint hum of danger that no one spoke aloud. Princess Lysara summoned him early one morning, her expression serious. She led him through hallways he had never seen, to a secluded chamber filled with glowing artifacts and ancient scripts. "There is a relic," she said, her voice low and measured, "hidden deep in the underworld of Velora. It is said to hold the power to neutralize curses and dark magic, but reaching it will not be easy." He had known the rogue faction was dangerous, but a journey into the underworld sounded far beyond anything he had imagined. "What kind of danger?" he asked. Lysara's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "Trials, traps, creatures that dwell in shadows, and tests of your heart and courage. Many have tried, few have returned." But he also felt a strange determination. He had chosen to be here to trust Lysara, and he could not turn back now. "Then we go," he said firmly. Lysara gave a faint nod, a hint of relief crossing her features. "Good. You must understand, this journey is not only about skill, it is about trust and sacrifice. You must be prepared to face your deepest fears." "This place," Eren whispered, "it feels alive. Misstep and it may consume you." The crystals refracted light into patterns that made it difficult to see the path forward. Shadows danced around them, and strange whispers echoed through the tunnels, speaking in languages Eren could not understand. "Focus," Lysara instructed, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Do not let fear guide you. Step carefully and observe everything." Beyond the crystal cavern, they reached a hall lined with ancient guardians, mechanical constructs powered by faint energy cores. The constructs moved with precision, responding to motion and sound. Eren's training with Lysara prepared him for this, and he moved instinctively, following her lead. They reached a narrow bridge over a deep chasm. Below, shadows twisted like smoke, rising and falling with the echo of distant footsteps. Lysara's hand brushed his as they crossed. "Trust is your greatest weapon here," she said. "If you falter, we may fall." In that moment, he realized that their bond was not only practical, it was emotional. They depended on each other not just for survival, but for courage and strength. Suddenly, a trap triggered. The bridge shook violently, planks splitting under their feet. Eren grabbed Lysara's hand, pulling her back as the shadows below surged upward as if seeking to swallow them. "Hold on," Lysara shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos. Together they leaped to solid ground, landing safely but breathless. Eren's heart pounded, his pulse loud in his ears. I thought we might," he began. "You survived," Lysara said quietly, her hand lingering on his shoulder. "And that is what matters. Survival is the first step toward redemption." At one point, Eren found himself trapped in a shadow that whispered his doubts and insecurities. He struggled, panic rising, until he remembered Lysara's earlier words, "Courage surpasses fear." He closed his eyes, focused on her image, and took a step forward. The shadow dissipated, dissolving into faint light. Lysara watched, her expression both proud and relieved. "You are learning," she said. "Not just skills, but strength within yourself. Someone must offer a piece of their own strength to activate it." Light surged through them, bright and overwhelming. Irene felt a surge of energy, both frightening and empowering. Memories of fear, doubt, and hesitation flooded him, but Lysara's presence grounded him. Together, they directed their will, focusing on protecting the palace and neutralizing the curse. The relic pulsed, then released a wave of light that swept through the underworld, erasing shadows and purifying the lingering dark energy. The rogue faction's influence weakened, and for a moment the air felt lighter, safer. Irene collapsed to the ground, exhausted but unharmed. Lysara knelt beside him, her hand on his cheek. "You were brave," she said softly. "More than I could have asked for." He had faced fear, darkness, and uncertainty, yet he had endured. Lysara had trusted him, and he had trusted her. In the days that followed, the palace grew quieter. The rogue faction retreated, weakened but not destroyed. Lysara's strength as a leader became more apparent, tempered by the trials she had faced. And Irene, he found that he had grown as well, learning courage, patience, and the power of honesty. One evening, as they stood together in the palace gardens, Lysara spoke softly. "You have changed the course of more than one life, Irene. You have changed mine. I never imagined that one honest observation could lead to all of this. But for now, they had survived. They had trusted each other. And in that trust, they had found a connection stronger than fear, stronger than doubt." Irene realized that honesty had led him here, not just to Lysara, not just to the palace, but to a deeper understanding of courage, loyalty, and the bonds that could form in the face of danger. And as the twin moons rose above Valora once more, Irene felt a quiet certainty that together he and Lysara could face whatever shadows remained and perhaps shape the destiny of the city itself. The city of Valora shimmered under the first light of dawn, but the calm was deceptive. Though the relic had neutralized much of the rogue faction's power, rumors had reached the palace that the faction had regrouped, stronger and more determined than ever. Irene stood on the palace balcony, looking over the city. The floating gardens glinted in the soft light, the towers casting long, crystalline shadows. Beside him, Lysara stood silently, her expression both regal and thoughtful. The weight of leadership rested heavily on her shoulders, yet she had grown stronger since the journey to the underworld. "They will come," Lysara said quietly, breaking the silence. "Sooner than we expect. They will not forgive what we have done." Together, Lysara led the defense with grace and authority, her combat skills honed by their training in the underworld. Irene followed her lead, anticipating attacks, blocking strikes, and protecting the princess whenever danger approached. They moved as one, their trust and connection evident in every action. At one point, Irene found himself separated from Lysara, facing a group of cloaked attackers. Fear rose, but he remembered the lessons of the underworld. Courage surpasses fear, and honesty guides the heart. He focused, using strategy and agility to evade their strikes and slowly gained the upper hand. Meanwhile, Lysara faced her own challenge. The leader of the rogue faction, a figure cloaked in dark energy, more formidable than anyone they had encountered, advanced toward her, a weapon glowing with forbidden power. "You cannot stop me," the figure said, voice cold and commanding. "Your reign is over." Lysara moved with precision, blocking attacks and countering with skillful strikes. Irene arrived at her side just in time, intercepting an attack aimed at her back. Together they fought, their movements synchronized as if they had known each other's thoughts for years. During a brief pause in the battle, the rogue leader unleashed a wave of dark energy, aiming to overwhelm them both. Irene acted instinctively, placing himself in front of Lysara and channeling his energy through the training and courage he had gained. Light surged from him, combining with Lysara's power, and the dark energy dissipated in a brilliant explosion. The rogue leader staggered, weakening under their combined force. Lysara seized the moment, striking decisively and neutralizing the threat. The remaining faction members, seeing their leader defeated, retreated into the shadows, vanishing as mysteriously as they had appeared. Irene breathed heavily, the adrenaline of the battle coursing through him. Lysara turned to him, eyes filled with a mixture of relief and admiration. "You were brave," she said softly. "You risked everything." "We did it together." "Valora stands strong. not because of power alone, but because of courage, loyalty, and the bonds that unite us. That evening, the palace held a quiet ceremony to honor those who had defended it. Lysara invited Irene to stand beside her, a gesture that both surprised and humbled him. "You have proven yourself," she said, her voice calm but filled with warmth. "Not only in courage and skill, but in heart. You have chosen honesty, trust, and loyalty, even when it was difficult. That is more valuable than any title or weapon. Your presence has changed more than this palace. It has changed me." The bond between him and Lysara had been forged through trials, danger, and shared courage, and it had emerged stronger than either could have imagined. In the days that followed, the palace began to heal. The rogue faction's influence had been weakened, and the people of Valora looked to their leaders with renewed confidence. Lysara took on her duties with a newfound clarity, tempered by experience and strengthened by trust. Irene, too, found his place. No longer just a visitor, he became a partner in observation, strategy, and counsel. The people of the palace began to respect him not only for his insight, but for his courage and integrity. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the city, Irene and Lysara walked together through the floating gardens. The air was calm, filled with the gentle hum of the city and the soft rustle of drifting petals. "You have changed everything," Lysara said softly, her hand brushing against his. "Your honesty, your courage, your willingness to step into the unknown. It has transformed more than just our safety. It has transformed the city, the palace, and me. I found courage, purpose, and you." The journey had been perilous, the trials had been many, and the shadows of the rogue faction had tested them beyond imagination. But through it all, they had endured, together. As they reached the highest point of the floating gardens overlooking the city, Irene and Lysara stood side by side, watching as the twin moons cast their silver light over the towers and bridges below. The city was alive, vibrant, and safe for now, and the future seemed filled with possibilities. Lysara leaned slightly against him, her presence grounding him, and whispered, "Perhaps this is the beginning of something new, not just for us, but for Valora. A new beginning." And as he stood there, feeling the gentle brush of her hand against his, he knew that their story, one of trust, honesty, courage, and love, was only just beginning. The shadows had passed, the trials were behind them, and Valora stood renewed. But most importantly, Irene and Lysara had found in each other a bond that no danger, no challenge could undo. A bond forged in truth, strengthened by courage, and sealed with trust. And under the light of the twin moons, they faced the future together, ready to shape it with honesty, bravery, and the unexpected magic of a human and an alien princess who had seen each other clearly and chosen to stand together.